Hey, beautiful people. I'm back. Welcome to another What Else is Going On, aka We Go podcast episode. I'm your girl, your host, Taria. We are getting ready to get into the Real Housewives Ultimate Girls Trip, Roaring 20s. Those R's, shoddy kicking my behind. We're getting ready to get into the first episode. What is the episode title, y'all? This first episode is titled, hold on, Back Where It All Began. Season five. I guess it is season five of a girls trip. Season five, episode one, Back Where It All Began. So, y'all do know I've said it in my last two videos that my last two recaps, OC and no, my last recap, OC. Anyway, I've said that I'm having a guest on tomorrow. We're going to just, let me go back. A podcast episode is going to go out tomorrow with me and a guest where we discuss Atlanta. And for like a second, like touch on Real Housewives Ultimate Girls Trip, not much. I'm getting ready to give y'all my thoughts that I had while watching it live. And then when I talk to my guest tomorrow, that episode is going to go out Friday. We're going to get into it and me get their thoughts. But I just wanted to give y'all my thoughts and get y'all's thoughts. You know how you watch something once and then maybe twice, and then the third time you might discuss it with somebody and your perspective might change a little bit, or you miss something. So, but let's get into Ultimate Girls Trip. So we start out, they show flashbacks of the wives, and Andy saying there's just under 200 real housewives. That's a lot of housewives. Is he counting? I guess he's counting obviously present, and yeah, obviously, because there's not 200 on right now, but there's 200 housewives. So they start showing the main cast. And Teresa says in her confessional, I've been through a lot of hard things on the show. Child, y'all know I keep saying it. I use speak to text as I'm watching and taking notes. My notes say I've been through a lot of hard legs on the show. Now you know I ain't say that serious. Anyway, Teresa said I've been through a lot of hard stuff on the show, but every time I get knocked down, I just get right back up. I keep getting right back up. Giselle says, I said I was going to do 5 years and go back to my life of nobody knowing me. It hasn't happened. I mean, there's still time. No. Vicki says, not many people have a diary of the last 20 years of their life. Kyle says, these last 15 years have been the craziest ride. I didn't get how big this thing was going to be. Porsha says, being a housewife is a sisterhood, y'all. We keep hearing that word. No matter where you go, if another person is a housewife, they know your story. Lisa says, 20 years seeing all of these cities emerge, and now I'm on Housewives. It's kind of crazy. I can imagine when you come in on the beginning, it's one thing, but then to come in when it's already so huge is also a big deal because you're like, wow, I'm a part of this. Luann says, when I started the Housewives, I didn't know what reality TV was. I didn't know how successful it would become or how many of us would have mugshots. Ciao. She right about that. So we start out the episode. It was interesting to me that they started it out this way. They start out the episode at Porsha's house and Nene knocks on the door. Porsha, open the door. Because I would think that they would have waited until she got to Atlanta. But the fact that they started it out with Nene, I was happy. I tried to hold back a little bit because I'm like, oh, I want this back on my season. Who knows? There's rumors that she's coming back, not coming back in negotiations. It's not a sure thing. Who knows? But what I will say is that I enjoyed this. Porsha said the last time they saw Nene, it was season 12 when she closed that laptop. Okay. They have a lot to catch up on. So Nene says, we got a lot to catch up on. You swimming in the lady pond. Porsha tells her how it happened. It's the real deal. She then tells her about the trip that the ladies are going on. So she names Teresa. Nene says Teresa is sweet. She says Vicki. Nene said Vicki is cool but loud. She names Kyle. Nene says, now Kyle, that's my girl. Porsha says Giselle. Nene's quiet. Starless. Isn't that what Nene said on the radio? Down to the podcast, no. But Porsha makes sure to say, Giselle and I are really close. And then Porsha says, Lisa, Salt Lake City. She said, am I forgetting somebody? And they say Luann. And Nene says, I know Luann. So Porsha said, this girl's trip will not be like any other. In her confessional, Porsha says this trip will not be like any other. And then in her confessional, Kyle says they're going to start in the OC, go to Beverly Hills, then Atlanta, then Miami, and they will land in New York City. And then they're going to Bluestone Manor. Nene said Atlanta is going to go up like when they come to Atlanta. Of course it is. I don't care what nobody say. Atlanta, I agree with Porsha later in the episode. Atlanta kicked in the front door, waving the 4-4 and said, we taking over all y'all cities. Like Atlanta was the one for me. So uh, Porsha said this whole thing, she tells Nene, this whole thing is about iconic housewives, but what about the iconic housewife? And Nene's like, so they show flashbacks of Nene and some of her iconic moments. Porsha said, for you to come back after all this time for the 20th is huge. So Nene says, yeah, so let's take a look at your stuff, girl. What you gonna pack? Kyle and Vicki have good clothes. That was funny. So now all the ladies are heading to the airport. Vicki says the first episode aired March 21st, 2006, 20 years ago. And she felt like she's birthing a baby. So they show flashbacks about the years of OC. And her confessional, the producer says, are you glad you got your orange back? Vicki said, I don't know why they fired me in the first place. I'm pretty relevant. Child, next Kyle arrives. They're arriving at the resort that they're staying in the OC, because remember the OC is first. She said, I can't believe she's the longest consecutive running housewives in the franchise. I said, I agree with Kyle on something, because I can't believe it either. They show flashbacks throughout the years of Beverly Hills, her and her ponytail and her splits. She said, even though sometimes I feel like, oh my gosh, how did I get here? I belong here. So we know she's not leaving anytime soon. So every time a season wraps and it's Kyle doesn't know she's coming back, we know that's a lie. Porsha arrives and says, when she got the call for the Ultimate Girls Trip 20-year anniversary, she knew she had reached peak housewifeism. They show flashbacks of her moments. Here comes my girl Lou, y'all. She said, look, when I started Housewives, I was married, I got divorced, I got married again, got divorced again, and I went to jail. Remember when Lou talked about eating that bologna sandwich in jail? She said, all while raising her 2 children. She said, I don't feel 20 years older, and hopefully I don't look. Lou looks good. All the ladies are beautiful anyway. Lou looks so good. So those 4 ladies that have arrived are sitting waiting for the other ladies. Vicki says, I don't think we have to call you Countess. Porsha said, I think we do. You still have the title, right? So then Porsha says to Luann, what do you want us to call you? Lou said, just call me Lou. Child, in her confessional, Luann says, I'm really just Lou from Connecticut. Like J-Lo from The Hood. The producer says, the block. I said, Lou. Giselle arrived. She said she was honored and humbled when she got the call. There were so many housewives they could have chose from, but they decided to choose her, the best one. Now, I said this before, and I'm going to say it, I think I put it on Threads. At the Rugged party they had a couple days ago or last week, Karen Huger said she got the call, but she turned it down because of her to focus on her healing, her sobriety. I wonder if they were going to have Karen and Giselle or just Karen. Because if it was going to be just Karen, what that kind of tells me is that Giselle may be the face of Potomac, but Karen is like, not that Giselle isn't. Giselle can have her entertainment moments. I will give her that. But Karen has that something to me, even though she be lying. But Karen has that je ne sais quoi, that something. The people love Karen. So I wonder if it was going to be just Karen. Anyway, she said when it comes to Potomac, don't nobody get more OG than her. Okay. Teresa arrives and says she was honored to get the call. She asked ChatGPT who is the most iconic housewife, and ChatGPT said Teresa. She got an outdated iPhone? No, I'm just kidding. I'll say this, and I'm gonna say it again later in my notes. But when Teresa's in settings like this, I like her. And when Jersey started, I loved Teresa. Even when Melissa and Joe came on, I loved Teresa. I was firmly like, nah, Joe, nah, Melissa, Teresa. Then somewhere along the way, it switched. But I like Teresa in these settings. Um, we see Lisa. Oh, they show a flashback of Teresa's moments. They see all the ladies now are waiting for Lisa. And Lisa is in her ride share, running her mouth to the driver. Y'all that have been with me, y'all know that I'm a driver. And it gets on my nerves so bad. like talking. Anyway, talking to the driver like that, just like incessant. But anyway, so she says when she got the call, she was like, wow, what could be better? These girls are legends. This is going to be epic. I'm sure she has to be excited. I would be too, right? So they get there. All the ladies are there. Lisa asks Vicki, how do you whoop it up? Vicki says, I'm going to show you. In her confessional, Vicki said she's hoping the ladies, oh, she's hosting the ladies in her town, the OC, where it all started. They're going to go on the boat in the bay, and then they're going to go to the Quiet Woman, and they're going to whoop it up. Vicki hands out goodie bags. She has a little snore machine that has recorded her snore because we know all of us. Um, I didn't watch OC when it first came out. I started with Atlanta, but then I did go back and watch the full seasons. So all of us know that have watched from the beginning, that have watched all the seasons know if there was a conversation happening, Vicki and Don would pretend to be asleep if they were bored. So that's where that came from. She also gives them a clipboard with paperwork to fill out in case they don't have life insurance. She'll get them insured, or if they don't have enough. I said, I feel like she's gonna irritate these ladies. Giselle said, is Vicki gonna kill us? The ladies were looking at Vicki crazy. In her confessional, Lisa said, I'm just meeting Vicki for the first time. She want my birthday, my social security number, my full name. Nice to meet you too, Vicki. I said, put you in the mind of Jen Shaw, don't it? So Vicki tells the ladies the itinerary. She says, oh, so the ladies are all talking amongst each other. She's like, ladies, you gotta focus on her. Then she yells, it's going to be a long 14 days. The look on Teresa's face, y'all, was so funny. Like, Teresa looked at Vicki like how she looked at Ramona. Wait, I know Kenya didn't get along with Ramona, but Teresa didn't either, did she? On that girl's trip? I thought so. Either way, Teresa looked irritated. The ladies go to their rooms and they're at the surf and sand resort. It's really beautiful. Giselle and Lou sharing a room. Giselle said, are we sleeping together? Lou said, no, they have two beds. Giselle reminds us in her confessional that her and Luann did Love Hotel together. She said three things about Luann for short. You're going to get a song. She's going to talk about herself. And if there's men around, Lou will be right there. Giselle and Lou sit down for breakfast. Child, Lou got sausage on the go, in case there's an emergency. Now the ladies are all getting ready for the boat because remember the first thing is the boat. Teresa and Lisa are out first. Teresa loves Lisa's sunglasses. Giselle comes out and she says, we look like we're all going to different places. That they do. They were getting ready to get in the Sprinter, right? And Giselle said, hold on, back up, like you might break a nail. Porsha says, oh, I don't wear long nails. Giselle says, oh, because you. Porsha says, oh, and flips her hair. When I tell you I fell out, Giselle falls out laughing and says, we'll talk about that later. In her confessional, Porsha said, the girls that get it, get it. I said, oh, you can't be punctured or nothing. Okay, anyway. And then they cut to Kyle. Kyle. Lisa says it's iconic that they're here in the OC. Giselle said she could see herself as a Kodo girl. It's beautiful. Kyle said she loves it down there because it's a lot more peaceful than LA. Of course, they show flashbacks to the screaming and hollering. Teresa said it reminds her of Jersey. The ladies look at her like the Jersey that's on the East Coast in the United States of America. So they get to the boat and it's really beautiful. There's fans out there taking pictures of them as the ladies are walking, down, I was going to say walking the plank, walking down to the boat. One of Kyle's heels gets stuck. And Porsha says, we're very much involving the fans. And then Giselle says, this is the worst kept secret ever. And I remember seeing the pictures. Kyle said, people come up to her and say, can I give you a hug? Because they feel like they know her. And she says, they kind of do. So Porsha said, we're celebrating something that the fans have been a part of for 20 years. And I thought that was nice of them to acknowledge that in their confessionals. Like, yeah, the fans have been a part of this too. That's what made the show continue to go on and be great. The fans, supporting the show. Lisa said, when you look around, there were dinosaurs down here at one point because it looks like pterodactyl land. I said, y'all, the people that have been with me know I don't care for Lisa, but I do think it's cute. And it's funny that she's not funny. What's the word? Like, I like that. I love how she's interested in these random things. Like, we'll get a random thing and it's like, oh, okay. I think that's cute. The ladies go upstairs on the boat and there's life-size posters of them all in their first season. Porsha said, Luann, what were you like, 12? Luann says Giselle looks like Jessica Rabbit. And Luann tells Lisa she looks naughty. They say Kyle looks the same. I said, lies, you tell. You could tell it's Kyle, but also Kyle don't look the same. To me. Maybe it's lies to me. Y'all let me know. I think she does. She said, like, she does, but she doesn't. Somebody said Vicki looks the same. I said she does, but she doesn't. Like, you could tell it's Vicki, but also she doesn't. Porsha said, this is the Teresa I grew up on. I said, Teresa looked like Melania, like a younger Melania in her photo. Kyle said, it's not that I look horrendous, but Lisa Vanderpump told me to put Botox like in her top lip, and then it just droops down. I will find a way to bring up Lisa. Even though she was telling a story, but she brings up Lisa. Lisa said they look like ventriloquists and not real people. And Lisa's picture does actually. So Vicki says, well, who changed the most? Child, Vicki said, I think Teresa. Teresa said, oh. Their reaction to that was so funny. I was like, Teresa said the only thing I've had done was the tip of my nose, I guess outside of her lips and stuff. Luann said, wow, look at that. The way they reacted. In her confessional, Luann said, Vicki is Ramona S. She lets things fall out of her mouth without thinking too much. Exactly. In her confessional, Giselle said, I would have been like, well, you look the same. You look different too. Kyle says, look, we all look beautiful then and now. And Giselle says, thank God for Botox. So they sit down to eat. And Kyle said, all of you East Coasters think it's warm enough to wear a bathing suit. I said, they sure did come out like it's warm. You know, to the OC people, it may not be as warm as it could be, but to us East Coast, that's how it felt when my son went to Chapman University in Southern California. And it was beautiful. Even when we went in the wintertime, even if you had to wear a light jacket, the weather was still much warmer than up here. So Vicki asked them, do they know how to play Bunko? Many of them don't. Vicki said, well, we're going to dress like the 80s. We're redoing my Bunko. I'm recreating the Bunko party that I had on the show. And maybe we'll see some of the other OGs from the franchise from the very beginning. So they all cheers. They're excited. Take a shot. Giselle, here she goes. I said, come on, producer Giselle. She said, I have a question. I look at these cardboard cutouts. It's our first season. We've come a long way. I would love to know what everybody thinks their iconic moment is. So Vicki said, I've had several. And all the ladies are talking amongst themselves. And she starts hitting the table. Hello, I'm talking here and hitting the table. She tells Lou, they totally ignore me. And the ladies are looking at her like, see, she can get away with that stuff on Orange County. Child. It's interesting how to see them outside of their element with other people from other franchises. So she tells them when she showed up at Michael's college and did the keg stand, y'all remember that? Kyle said it was when she ran out the door in Amsterdam with her cape because she doesn't like conflict and freaks out. Lisa said her big moment was when she cussed Meredith and her family out. She said, when I watched it, I cried because I felt bad that I hurt her and her family. And at the reunion, I just had to take it. Girl, no, you didn't. You was letting her know the reason that you was mad is because somebody told you she said your house was ugly or something like that. Girl, you cussed her out like that because of something you heard she said about your house. Okay. Family opposers. She thinks everything in New York. Anyway, Porsha said, I think the thing about Atlanta, we came in and just took it to the next level with the stuff we went through. When me and Kenya came along, it was drama. Kyle said, didn't Kenya bring the megaphone? And Giselle said, yeah. So Porsha said, she reached behind me and pulled out that bullhorn. And let me tell you, I was never mad at Porsha for dragging her because not only did she have the bullhorn, she had that that scepter in her face. I don't know if I used to listen to B. Scott's podcast. Well, I listened and then they don't do it any longer. I wish they would bring it back. B, if you ever see this, bring it back. B said it was their idea for Kenya to bring the scepter because they were good friends then. So you're part of the reason she got dragged off the stage. Anyway, so yeah, but I was not mad. Porsha said that changed the history of bringing props because Kenya was the first one to bring props to the reunion. So Giselle said, I have the floor now. Our first season, we were celebrating Karen. And it was when she sat in the middle seat and it was Karen's birthday and Karen was upset. She said, I felt like that allowed the powers that be to look at us and be like, oh, they're housewives because we were the ladies at Potomac. They had no choice. They had filmed you thinking that it was going to be about Jack and Jill. And when Jack and Jill sent the letter and said, they had to make it something. Yeah. Kyle said we were supposed to be the sweet little angels of Beverly Hills. I'm just kidding. So Giselle said, well, Teresa, yours is kind of obvious. And then they show her doing prostitution whore 19 times. I still want to know what Teresa yelled at the very, very end. Then Teresa gets vulnerable and talks about the 15 years, and everybody thinks she's on TV and it's fun, but she goes on to get ready to open up about her time in jail. She said she signed refinance papers, and never in her life did she think she would go to jail. So Porsha says it was because you signed refinance paperwork, and Teresa said no, it was mortgage fraud. She was really opening up. The ladies were asking questions. She said he didn't pay our taxes for 10 years. Here comes Vicki. Vicki first flinging her body all over, causing attention to her. The ladies are looking at her. Then Teresa says the government came knocking on our door, and Vicki starts making these stupid noises. Y'all, I can't stand when she does that stuff. Then she starts banging on the table. I pay my taxes all the time, no penalties, no interest. Then she says you might get a financial lesson later on sometime this week. In her confessional, Porsha said Teresa is finally talking about the hardest time in her life. Then Lisa says, why is she taking her vulnerability and making it like a lesson in TurboTax? I got to give Lisa her 8s, never her 10s, her 8s. I'll even give her 9. That was good. Porsha is telling Vicki she didn't know. That's the point. She's saying she didn't know what was happening. Vicki said, I get that. She's a victim of what she went through. You were a product of what happened. That's what she said. She said, when a business is involved, you always have to file your taxes. Teresa said, I'm not even going to get into that, whatever. Anyway, I was like, In her confessional, Teresa said, Vicki keeps poking the bear. Who knows? I might be flipping her off this boat. We don't know. I was so irritated because we were literally getting like a relaxed Teresa that seemed like she felt safe to talk about it. Even with, she didn't know she knows of all of them, of course, but I don't know. I just liked where we were going with that. And then here come Vicki interrupting. Giselle said, what about you, Luann? So Lou says New York's most iconic moment. They were filming in Turks and Caicos, and when Ramona and her brought the men back to the house, and she's like, be cool, don't be all uncool. There was that. Kyle says, I can tell you no one in Beverly Hills has ever met a guy and brought them home in 15 years. We don't care. Okay. Luann says, we're New York girls. So Giselle said, do you feel like New York took shine from the OC? Vicki said, we were both doing really, really well. And I like Luann's answer. Luann said, look, we were different women from different places. I think OC is OC and New York is New York. However, in their confessionals, Vicki said, everybody loves their franchise. Lou says, no disrespect to the OC and Vicki, I didn't want to cut it down, but we put it on the map. Lou says, I think New York really put it on the map. Giselle says, Porsha, y'all hold it down in Atlanta. Y'all put OC and New York to shame. Luann said, I wouldn't go that far. Vicki said, you wouldn't be here if it wasn't for me. Porsha said, you opened the door and we kicked it down and took the house and threw you out. You've been evicted, Vicki. Vicki said, I want everyone to be successful. I'm not that girl. Porsha said, well, I'm that girl. They laughed, did shots. They went and they started what they call twerking. Giselle said, when Portia's twerking, everybody moved to the side because we can't keep up and it's a little unfair. Kyle says she got back. The ladies are now getting ready for the 80s party, and Luann and Giselle, they are having a kiki being roommates, and I'm enjoying it. Luann wanted a kiss on the cheek. Mwah, mwah. They kissed 3 times here. Giselle said, but we're in Laguna Beach. Luann says, I know. Luann want to kiss Giselle in the mouth. Anyway, we see Vicki putting pictures of Gretchen and Slade in her bag. Teresa goes to Lisa's room. In her confessional, Teresa said the theme is 80s, and she bought a sweatsuit from back in the 80s. It was really cute. Nobody had a Gordon Gartrell? I'm just kidding. Teresa said to Lisa, I don't think I've ever seen your hair this big. And she says, I love the 80s. I'm trying to get my hair to be the height of your wedding hair. It's iconic. So Lisa said it was going back to the Godfather roots. In her confessional, Teresa said they have a saying in Jersey. Then she said, well, I don't know if it's Jersey, but the higher the hair, the closer to God. I've heard that saying too. I thought it was like a down south thing, but maybe not. Either way, we've heard the saying. Kyle goes to visit Porsha and said, oh my gosh, this room is so tiny. So Porsha said, how are you going to take the bigger room? And then tease me, but great things are coming out of it. Giselle and Luann are sitting in their robes talking. And Giselle asked Luann, are you close to Vicki? And Lou said, no, I think she tends to have a mean streak. Did you see her today? Then she brings up Teresa opening up to them and Vicki butting in. She said Vicki is aggressive. And when she was talking about Tamara today, we see a flashback of Giselle, Vicki, and Luann. Giselle said, "Who are you close with? Tamara." Vicki said, "I love Tamara, but I always worry about her." Giselle said, "Worry about what? Worry about what she's going to say." Vicki said, "Just for the cameras." Um, Giselle said, "Yeah, I get you." And Vicki says, "For the wow of it." Like, is basically, is Tamara going to say something just for the cameras, for the wow of it? I love her, but I worry about that. Giselle says to Lou, "If Vicki feels that way, why do you feel that way?" In her confessional, Giselle said, "Vicki is actually being quite a mean girl. I thought she's being the quintessential mean girl, and I thought I was going to be the quintessential mean girl. I actually look forward to it. Girl, you like being the mean girl to people who ain't going to come back and stand on your neck. And that's just the truth. It's just the truth. But let's not be the mean girl, Giselle. Let me just enjoy you in this capacity." So um, she said, "I have a little," in her confession, "I have a little bit more allegiance to Tamara." Y'all, oh my God. I'm go- I hope that y'all can hear me. I have had my mic on the floor. Corey's going to have to look at this and turn the volume up. Y'all, I'm screaming on the inside. He's sitting at the island as I'm doing this working, so I know he hears me say he might have to do it. I'm so sorry, y'all. I just happened to look down on the floor and see my mic. I'm sorry, y'all. All right. Okay, y'all, I can't believe I did that. Anyway, let's get back to business. So, uh, in her confessional, I'm sorry, Giselle says she has a little bit more allegiance to Tamara. I just met Vicki, and Vicki is about to start filming in Orange County again. So, Vicki, if you're walking around talking about you don't trust Tamara, which they did not show Vicki saying, Tamara needs to know. She said, and you worried about what she might say. Giselle tells Lou to go get dressed. She says, "Go get dressed, Madonna." And Luann says, "Like a virgin." Giselle said, "I've known you for a long time. You were not a virgin." Luann says, "No surprise there," and blew a kiss. I said, she want to kiss Giselle. The ladies are coming out all dressed up to go to the Sprinter. A little family van shows up. Kyle did it as a joke because of the throwback to Vicky's little family van. Child, Porsha said, "I don't know why y'all playing. These cloth seats are comfortable." The ladies start getting in, sitting on the floor. The exhaust stinks. Kyle says, "I was just kidding. Before y'all die from exhaust, this was a joke." So they show a flashback to Kyle being in Portia's room, telling her what she's going to do. Their real ride shows up. Luann says, "Let's go to Buko." Vicky says, "It's Bunko." So we get to the quiet woman, Gina Keogh, who the show was actually based on, is there along with Tamara and Joe. Tamara has on skates, so they have a plate that says "Not my plate." They have a sign that says Vicky's Bunko Party Redo. Tamara tells Gina, "If I decide to have too many cocktails and do backflips, stop me." Gina says, "You know I will." And then they show a flashback of Tamara throwing wine in Gina's face. So Tamara says, "Can you believe it's been 20 years?" Heather arrives with a cake, look like the cake with the bow on it. Vicky is telling, so as they're in their Sprinter, Vicky is telling people that the Quiet Woman is a very small restaurant, so don't judge. In her confessional, Vicky said, "It's notorious for the 'it's not my effing plate.'" She said it became one of those iconic moments. How embarrassing. That was funny to me. The ladies come in, Tamara skates right on over and hugs Vicky like her long lost sister. I said, "Girl, you want to be on this here camera," which I don't blame you, but girl. So Gina was introducing Joe. Gina says, "I'm the very first housewife. The show was written about my family." Kyle said, "I thought it was about Vicky." Gina said, "She's the longest running, but I was the first." Portia tells Heather, "It's my first time meeting you." In her confessional, she was glad to meet Heather. She said, "Heather's a baddie. She's a plastic surgeon's wife and an actress. And you would think she would be like stuck up, nose in the air, but she's not." In her confessional, Giselle says she knows Fancy Pants and loves her. She knows Crazy Tamara and loves her. Then we see Joe introducing herself to Giselle. In her confessional, Giselle says, "I never met Joe before, but she's season one of 20 years of OC. Who doesn't love Joe?" In her confession, here go Kyle. "Who's Joe?" The producer says one of the original cast members of The Housewives. She says, "Oh, was she here tonight?" Girl. So Joe is telling Porsha and Giselle she was the first Latin housewife. Porsha is having the time of her life over there with Joe. They act like she's speaking Spanish. She dancing, going up and down. I said, Porsha is just here to have a good time, honey. Shannon Beador shows up in full costume with a cigarette hanging out of that lip. It wasn't lit. I said, okay, Shannon. They tell her she looks good. Heather asked her, was it her Mrs. Roper wig? And it show a flashback to when that other lady that used to be on OC called her Mrs. Roper. It was not. Shannon said to Tamara, oh my gosh, you're in skates? And then she sees Tamara's outfit and said, they had G strings back in the 80s. Tamara says, yes, I had them to work out. I felt like that was Shannon trying to get along for filming, trying to like, I'm not going to ignore her, trying to extend like an olive branch, almost kind of sort of. In her confessional, Vicki said her and Shannon have remained close. She's got the same heart I do. She'll stick up for herself, but she don't want drama in her life. Now, I don't know. There's a part of me that feels like Shannon thrives on a little bit of drama, but anyway, or she likes it in a weird sort of way. She said, oh, so then wait. Oh, so then Shannon says to Tamara, I just want to make sure you have your time periods right. Like I'm sorry, Shannon says that to Tamara. I just want to make sure you have your time period right. This is the 80s. Vicki says in her confessional with Tamara, I got upset with her when she was so mean to Shannon. Shannon's our friend. We're the Trace Amigas. She said the tension between Shannon and Tamara is alive. She hopes they can all play Bunko and just forget about it. Vicki takes to the stage and they like, oh, she get ready to sing. So Tamara says, Vicki, why do you look like a drag queen? Luann says she looks like Phil Spector. Luann was cracking me up. In her speech, Vicki talks about how Slade made the comment about her nose, it caused her to change her face. She talks about having insecurities and how she's never gotten over it, really. She has a picture of Gretchen and a picture of Sletchen and a picture of Graydon Sletchen on the table. I said, now, Vicki. So Luann yells, he's the pig. And they all agree. In her confessional, Lisa said, Vicki's gorgeous. Why would you change your whole aesthetic over some icky man's perception of you? And you guys online with your Cheeto stained fingers that say insults to women, let's get some new hobbies because your little effing icky comments are what drives people to do stuff like this. I agree. Vicki said tonight she wants to redo Bunko and go forward, not backwards, while having pictures of Gretchen and Slade on the table. Porsha says, as you should. In her confessional, Porsha said Orange County was one of the first places to sacrifice their privacy. That's the downside of being in front of the cameras as a woman and having to deal with everybody's opinion, especially when it comes to how you look. I really hate that for her. And I said, you know what? I agree. Even when doing our recaps and stuff, right? It's like a line that I don't want to cross. Sometimes you try to be funny and what have you. But at the end of the day, these are women putting their lives in front of the camera and they are putting a mic, what is it called, y'all? Not a magnifying glass? Yeah. On themselves, right? And being scrutinized. So um, she has candles lit to put around the pictures of Sletchen. Shop. I was going to say Sletchen and Grade. Yeah, them too. She has candles to put around Sletchen and Grade's pictures. She's screaming for the ladies to come over. Gina Keogh says, what are we doing? Having a seance? I noticed with Gina, it's like Gina Keogh. Like that's her full name. I mean, like that's her first name, Gina Keogh, instead of it being her first and last name, which prayers up for Gina. She has tongue cancer and her daughter was talking about the prognosis. She had an issue, but basically it was ignored. Okay, it says Gina initially noticed a painful spot on her tongue that she mistook for irritation from a tooth. I think it wasn't ignored just by her, though. I mean, it wasn't ignored by her, but I don't know if it was her doctors or whatever. I thought I saw her daughter said that. After nearly a year, a biopsy confirmed squamous, is that how you say it? Squamous cell carcinoma. An initial surgery to remove the cancer was followed by a second procedure that revealed the cancer had spread to her lymph nodes. Her treatment was temporarily complicated by a leg blood clot and an infection alongside severe malnutrition and trouble swallowing that required a feeding tube. Her current status, having completed her radiation phase, her family reports she is resting at home, utilizing a feeding tube to maintain her weight and beginning ongoing immunotherapy. So prayers up for Gina Keogh and her family because it was, seeing her on there took us back to one. So shout out to that. So Gina Keogh says, "What are we doing? Having a seance?" Joe said, "Why does my ex and Gretchen have candles all around them?" Because remember, when Joe started the show, she was with Slade. Lisa said, "It's not a shrine, right?" So, it's not a shrine, right? It's a lot of candles. In her confessional, Lisa said, "This shrine is freaking me out." Porsha said, "Is this satanic?" Then Lisa, back in her confessional, says, "It looks like we're praying to Slade instead of burning him at the stake." So, and then back in Portia's confessional, she said, "Girl, you could have just invited them. You didn't have to call upon their spirits to the party. Just call them. They live in Orange County still. These ladies, this is going to be a fun time." Vicki talked about how hurt to her core she was, and she got the new face because of him. They tell her she didn't need to do it. Teresa is looking, then she says, "Sorry about that." Luann says, "You know what I want to do? Why would you want to do this to yourself?" And takes the picture and like breaks the glass of Slate. Thank you, Jesus. Yes. She said, "Why do we want to look at his face?" Um, Luann says, "There we go. Let's get this party started." Because I agree, that was kind of weird, Vicky. I do. Teresa said I was going to do the same thing. In her confessional, Lisa said, "I love Luann's vigor and passion. There was not a bigger show of support for Vicky." Uh, and that was that. She said there was not a bigger show of support for Vicky than there was by Luann smashing these pictures of he who shall not be named. I found myself agreeing with Lisa a lot in her confessionals. I said, "Now, girl, wait a minute. Don't forget where you came from." Anyway, the ladies are picking their seats at the different tables to play Bunko. Vicky says she doesn't. Oh, no, I'm sorry. The ladies are picking their seats to eat first. It's a long table. Vicky doesn't want to sit at the end. She says she feels left out. So they all cheers. Tamra gets up, ding, 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 with the glass to do a toast because, she wants to have a moment. She said, "I want to congratulate Vicky Gunvalson for getting her mother effing orange back." Now, look, when I first watched it, I felt like, is she being shady by getting her orange back? Then I was like, Taria, no, maybe Tamara was saying it like it's a good thing she got her orange back. But I thought, is she being shady by saying it? I don't know. Y'all, what did y'all think? Then she says, wait. Oh, they show a flashback of Andy giving Vicky her orange, asking her to come back season 20. I wonder if she was really surprised or if it was discussed. Anyway, Tamra goes on with her speech. She says, "And for recreating this 80s Bunko party." Mind you, she's reading off a card. "Vicky, you don't have to worry tonight because no one is going to make fun of your looks at this Bunko party." Luann's face was so funny, like, what is going on? Gina says, "Well, I am. That hair sucks." Luann said, "The hair is terrible." Tamara says, "There's no need to get plastic surgery." All the ladies are looking at her absolutely crazy, as was I. What are you talking about? In her confessional, Teresa said, "Tamara, you were going on the right track. You started off, but then all of a sudden you made a wrong turn. What are you doing?" Tamara says, "For 20 years of Housewives," and they toast. Porsha says, "Thank you, Vicky, for starting it." Joe says, "We were the very first season." Tamara says, "Can I get a woohoo?" And then they go to play Bunko. So I heard somebody say, "I don't know how to play. I don't know how to play." And I think Heather said, "If you can roll dice, you can play." Tamara says, "Do we have assigned seating?" And Heather said, "No, they just told us to sit." So we see the ladies picking their tables for Bunko. Shannon says to Vicky, "Can I just do a quick summary for everyone?" And she goes to explain what they're supposed to do, how to play Bunko. I said, "I'm not listening because I'm not playing it." Then they start screaming, "Bunko, Bunko," the OC ladies. In her confessional, Giselle said, "Is it Bunko or Buku? I don't play it. I'm going to tell you, I'm a black woman. What the hell is this?" I was with Giselle. Spades, Tonk. Now, I don't play Tonk, but I know black folks play Tonk, and Uno. And then Uno is house rules, child. Everybody got their own rules. So spades too, actually. It's people be trying to have their own rules. Child. Anyway, Giselle said, "This is not in my culture." But some of y'all have said that y'all have played Bunko. Some of y'all black women in the comments have told me it. I said, no. I did on Threads. I said something about agreeing with Giselle, and people said they played it. I said, "Well, all right now." So in her confessional, Porsha said, I'm ready to scream out Boca. I don't even know what it is. I haven't had time to chat GPT it. So at one of the tables, we see Teresa, Kyle, Lisa, and Heather. Then we have Lou, Tamara, Portia, and Giselle. And Tamara starts screaming from her booth, wait a minute, wait a minute. Kyle says the OC people are very loud. Tamara says she's hired some hot 80s guys to come in and take score. The men come in dressed like the 80s, Lou's eyes lit up like a Christmas tree, honey. The guy said, how you doing, ladies? Lou said, we're doing better now. In her confessional, Giselle said, listen, you bring man out, she's ready. Lou's ready to party. She said, I'm not impressed, but Lou Ann is, of course, because they're men with penises. So the ladies seem to have, it looked like the ladies were switching tables, and maybe they didn't, but that's what it looked like. In the meantime, Lisa wants one of the guys to take pictures of them, and she's coaching him how to do it, where to sit. They need the bright light to make them prettier. The picture did come out cute. In the meantime, Shannon screams out Bunko. Luann is covering her ears. Kyle says, take me back to Beverly Hills because they're so loud. And I said, until the ladies talked about it, I didn't realize just how loud OC was and their pitch. I had never even thought about it, but they are, like all the other franchises argue too, but OC is a different pitch. Porsha said, they're loud. She can do loud, but it's like at glass break level. Shannon's pants are drooping a little bit. Luann tells her to pull up her pants. Shannon says, it's not a bad thing. Porsha says, only if you're showing top crack. So now we have Shannon, Luann, Porsha, Giselle, and Tamara sitting at the table. Giselle gets into producer mode and says, I just want to know, do y'all two hate each other? Talking about Shannon and what's the girl's name? Tamara. Tamara says, no. I mean, Giselle said, I didn't see y'all's last season. Were y'all communicating okay? So Shannon says, I tried. And Tamara gonna say Tamara says, I tried. Shannon said, that's her story. I'm not getting into it. She wanted to dead it. Tamara says, what's your story? Shannon says the truth. I said, this is so annoying. Tamara acts like she didn't go for Shannon's neck all last season, and then she'll cry and apologize and say, I was just angry because you weren't telling the truth. I'm really tired of the same. It's the same old song with Tamara and Shannon. I am sick of it. Shannon was like, I tried to move forward with you. I filmed with you. We went away together. To me, that was moving forward. So Vicki wants to know what's happening. Tamara has the nerve. I said, oh, here's Tamara's moment in front of the other housewives. I'm the one that's effing good. Even her tone changed. Y'all notice that? I thought she almost did a neck roll. I was going to say, Tamara, watch yourself. But she said, I'm the one that's effing good. I'm the one that's got the husband, the one that has kids that are going to college. I'm the one that has everything. I said, now hold on. Shannon's girls seem to be doing very well. Just because Shannon doesn't have a husband and you do doesn't mean anything. Having a husband is not the standard or sets you apart or means that you're not living a good life without a man. And when is the last time? I ain't going, nope, we're not going to get into it. We're not going to go. We won't go there. We can't. No, Taria, we can't. Anyway, Shannon gets up to walk away. Well, Shannon said, I sat with you. You were at a dinner table calling me a see you next Tuesday 18 times. So Shannon decides to walk away. Tamara says, oh, there she goes. She runs out. Shannon says, I don't want to have this conversation. Tamara said, because the truth hurts, and then calls her the B word. Shannon says, Tamara, you're so effing delusional. I don't care. So Tamara says, delusional. I'm not the one. And then she does like the drinking. And that's what annoys me. We've been through this already. Shannon said, stop with the alcohol. You're the one that says, Shannon, you're never going to see me drunk again. 5 hours later, you quit because you couldn't put a word together. Remember when she quit last season? I guess she was drunk. She said, no, it's because my best friend was in the hospital talking about Teddy. Giselle said, well, this was not productive. Girl. Shannon walks away and says, I can't. She's calling me a drunk again. This is what I deal with every time I film with her. And she's talking to some of the other ladies. Vicki comes up to her and says, what's going on? She says, Tamara's calling me a drunk. In the meantime, Tamara is telling the table, look, I've been good friends with her for 10 years. I was taking the phone calls in the middle of the night when she was drunk. I mean, in her confessional, Lisa said, I love Tamara. When she's on your side, she's a great girlfriend. But Shannon shouldn't be defined by one mistake she made during the worst period of her life. Why are you shaming her in front of everybody? It feels icky. I said, Lisa. So Kyle says, we're supposed to be here celebrating 20 years, not fighting over that stuff. This is what she's saying in her confessional. She said the Trace amigos are not really feeling like the amigas right now. They're starting to feel like the Trace enemies, but I don't know that word in Spanish. Giselle takes Tamara to the bathroom. I said, oh, she get her in that wig, get ready to be messy. In the meantime, Teresa is telling Shannon, don't let her push your buttons, ignore her. I said, we know that Teresa can't stand Tamara anyway. Giselle's in the bathroom telling Tamara. So earlier today, Vicki told all of us that she can't trust you because you like to make things up and throw her under the bus, so she can't confide in you. Where in the world did all of that come from when Vicki said, I love her, but I worry about her, what she's going to say on camera for the wow factor? Unless they cut it, where in the world did we see any of what Giselle said? Giselle didn't even take what she said and use different words. Giselle totally misrepresented that conversation. Totally. It's one thing if she wanted to stir the pot and tell her what Vicki actually said. Shamia be doing it. It's Giselle and Shamia. They hear something and hear something totally different. And with Shamia, I don't think she's necessarily trying to be malicious. I don't know if I think Giselle's trying to be whatever. It just that I was looking at her like, here we go. Anyway, anyway. Um, she says, Tamara says, oh wow. And then Giselle said, she said it first. She said she said it to all of us. Then she said it to me and Luann. And Tamara says, wow. In her confessional, Giselle says, I don't know the dynamic here too much. But if we're going to talk trash behind somebody's back, do it to their face. That's Potomac. We do that and we do it well. I said, or you ice people out. Okay. In the meantime, Porsha is talking to Joe. Porsha is so funny. She said, who are you dating? Are you married or what? Joe says married. Porsha says, okay, is it good? Joe says, I love it. Porsha says, any cheating? Joe says, no. Then they all start laughing. Porsha says, you never know. I said, again, why do people do that? As if people married don't know there's such a thing as cheating, but everyone's not cheating. Anyway, but I know Porsha was probably just having a key. Tamara pulls Vicki to the side to talk to her. Porsha says, where y'all going? So Tamara says, I talked to Giselle. She told me that you were talking ish about me today. Vicki said, I wasn't. Tamara said that I make up lies or something. Vicki said, I never said that. Tamara says, I thought we were good. In the meantime, Teresa is talking to Kyle and says, are they like talking? So Vicki tells Tamara, I never said you made up lies. And I do wonder what Tamara thinks watching it back, because we know Giselle watching it back will laugh and say, oh, I said it wrong. Ha, ha, ha. But I wonder what Tamara thinks watching it back, seeing what Vicki actually said. Again, unless it comes out that something was cut, none of what Giselle said is what Vicki said. So Vicki was basically trying to tell her, my life is good. I don't want conflict. She has a shtick and starts struggling with her wig, right? So then Kyle says to Shannon, did you talk? Did you and Tamara talk? And she's like, no, like, not talking about it. So then Tamara says, Vicki's trying to tell Tamara, look, I'm in the middle of this. Shannon's a Trace amiga. And Shannon's like, Tamara says, whatever Shannon does is on her. And Vicki's like, no, it involves all of us. She is a Trace amiga, and I feel affected by this. I want us all to be good, right? So, yeah. Oh, yeah, I missed this spot. But anyway, Vicki says Giselle is a pot stirrer, and Giselle's out of her life. You do know you got to film 13 more days with her, right? On road trips. Tamara says this speech and lets Vicki know, I love you. I'm here for you. I want the best for you. I've known you 20 years, longer than anybody. They make up. In her confessional, Vicki says, I didn't even know Giselle knew Tamara. Why would she pull her aside and tell her that? She knew it was going to cause an issue. She's playing dirty. Heather says, okay, everyone gather around. And the cake is on the table. She says, what a beautiful night as the kickoff to the 20th anniversary of Housewives. You guys are all the OGs. And the rest of us are just so thankful to all of you for paving the way and giving us all this platform and this incredible sisterhood. Cheers to us. And they all cheers. Lisa says, I really want a piece of cake. Listen, I enjoyed the episode. I know some people have said they did. I've seen a mix. Some people said they thought it was boring. Some people said they didn't like it. For what it was, I enjoyed it. And I'm ready to see what else they have for us. Y'all let me know. Did y'all enjoy it? I do. I'd have to say I wish Nene was main cast. I think Porsha is fun being main cast, but I would have loved to see Nene as well. And I'm looking forward to when they get to Atlanta. Child, when they showed what's still to come and Lou was flying through the air on that rope, y'all, I'm excited. Love y'all so much, and I will talk to y'all later. See ya.